your dog's going to bond with you no matter what. It's a matter of developing and taking that to the max in the healthiest way possible, and the way that provides the most utility for your dog to have fun, live a safe life, live its best life.
What is up, champion puppy owners? Do you really want a streamlined ownership experience? Do you really want a socialized dog with manners, responsiveness, and general life skills? Great, you're in the right place. This podcast is for accountable puppy owners who want to better know and grow their dogs. Time to put on your big girl panties, buckle up, and ride with me. Pat Quinn, the founder and creator of the Champion Puppy Training System. Let's go.
Welcome back to the Champion Puppy Training Podcast. So what I'm going to talk about today is my best tips and tricks to get your puppy trained. My number one best tips and trick is stop chasing tips and tricks. Every once in a while you'll get a helpful tidbit, but more often than not, you're going to find yourself with a half solution. It might work partially for your problem, and it might help with the symptom a little bit, or one of the symptoms to a certain extent, but it's not going to get to the root cause of what's causing that either behavioral concern or that lack of responsiveness. So I've always been pretty big on the fundamentals, especially after a couple years of chasing tips and tricks myself, looking for the next tool. My first couple of years, I answered my clients' questions and developed their dogs with a lot of these little one-off. When your dog does this, I want you to do that. When your dog does that, I want you to do this. And it was all rooted with a certain amount of backing, but it just didn't work on the dog. It tried to kind of fly by the seat of your pants answers to a certain extent. And what I've found is by slowing down my approach and having things be more deeply rooted, you're able to have a common communication system that works for everything across the board. But for the general puppy owning population to take a step back, slow it down, comprehend that, and then apply that, it's a little bit more difficult in this day and age where everybody wants to just get that instant gratification or that quick fix. I can have puppies sit quicker for those first handful of reps, but I won't be able to make sitting, staying, and staring part of their subconscious behavior and just something they do all day long if I take that approach. That's not to say that my puppies don't sit relatively quickly once I work with them, but I certainly could have them sit quicker, but I do my best to do minimal communication on the front end. That way there's less I have to lean off of when I'm actually having a dog respond to next to no communication, because that's my ultimate goal. My goal when I initially start working with a puppy is I want to get as much as possible with little as possible, and then eventually wean off so I barely have to communicate with my dog as I go through my ownership process. And for a lot of people, that is not, it's counterculture, and some people might have to kind of get their head around that concept. But my analogy for that, as I do training analogies, if you've been listening to my show, you know that, or if you listen to my ebook or read my ebook, Puppy Parables. But my analogy for that is, would you rather have a company, a business, that your team, your employees respond to you when you ask them to do something? Or would you rather have a company where people just function without you needing to be there because of your systems that you have in place and the groundwork that you laid? That way you can go start another company or go on vacation and enjoy your family, and work on the business versus at the business. And so that's what I aspire for all my clients that I take on. That you don't have to get to the point where you have your dog not jump and you give like a verbal reprimand, or that you don't have to tell your dog to come when called. And your dog can look at a distraction and choose to come with you. Now, not all my clients are going to get to that point, and I know that going into it. Some of my clients, they just want that relief. They just want to get to the point where their dog is socialized and responsive enough, and their dog's not jumping on their kids anymore, their guests, and then they're happy, extremely happy for a lot of my clients. And then sometimes I have clients that they want it, they want to know their dog. They're really just kind of digging this content and the transformation that they've seen their dog go through, as well as the transformation that they've gone through. Going back to my topic of this podcast, the best tips and tricks are to avoid tips and tricks, right? It's a dangerous road to go down when it really sounds like somebody with a drug problem, where you're just looking for that next fix. It's temporary relief. Get off the drugs, get off the social media drugs, get off looking for that next little tidbit of information that you think is going to cause a massive change. And don't get me wrong, there are some things out there that I can just give you some one-off pieces of advice, like switching out like how you feed your dog, maybe with the Colin Wobbler that I'm a huge fan of. And then there's like the bones that you choose, or you're using containment, or the handling skills. There are some areas where I can give you one-off advice, and you will see a difference, but it's not the transformation. The transformation happens when you wed those all together. So it's when you take all these different silos, and what I've seen over the years is owners have like immediate relief in a much more major way, because confinement affects sleeping, which affects potty training, which affects as well as chewing, confinement does. And it also puts your dog on a schedule to be energetic right on time, so then you can burn that energy right on time in a known systematic way. And that's where results happen. It's not going to the gym once for 4 hours. It's waking up every day and hitting it up. I've found, and both from my studies and from my actual life, that when you can, on a daily basis, do the same thing, but just look to tighten it up and get it better. And that's where not just doing something once, but doing something over and over again matters so much. Something that's worth doing once, it's worth doing a million times. If it's not worth doing once, then you shouldn't do it again. And again and again. But too often we find ourselves as puppy owners just continuing to operate in a broken system. A lot like a business owner who accepts certain things. Maybe it might be an attitude by their team, where they just think like, oh, well, I can't fix their attitude. Well, of course you can. It's your company. It's your dog. So if you can't own that, if you can't own every piece of your dog, and I say that own your dog in a healthy way, get to know your dog, get to know how you can serve your dog in the most appropriate way, where you have a systematic approach. So I'm going to keep this podcast relatively short for today. I'm used to doing a little bit longer podcast, but I don't think there's a lot more that needs to be said besides stop chasing tips and tricks, or at the very least, identify them for what they are. And you will get a couple, nuggets of information if you go down some rabbit holes on like YouTube or wherever else you might be trying to consume the content. But know that you can burn a couple hours just going down those rabbit holes of videos that pop up next on your feed or that pop up next in your search bar. And with those hours that you spent, you could have made an investment that is a little bit more concrete, that has a basis that you keep coming back to, and one that you can grow off of. And that's one of the things that I would look for. It's almost like an investor looking for like a certain level of results, a certain level of solvency, a certain level of profitability, a certain level of a structure, a level of really having a strong basis point where you can relate almost everything back to. I hope this short podcast leaves you walking away feeling maybe a little bit like enlightened, a little bit more willing to let things, those shiny things, if you're suffering from puppy owner shiny object syndrome, where you're just chasing things almost like I picture like a fish, that's like, ooh, that looks good, and then you just chomp on that, and like, ooh, that that's a worm, chomp on that, and then boom, you get hooked on that, just going from one thing right to the next, and just chasing, literally like chasing your tail. And so you can't expect for your puppy to focus if you can't. Going back to my first podcast. Anyway, I'm going to make it a point to do a handling episode next time. That way we get into some more of that, the actual interactions with your dog. Keep in mind, 90% of what you do to develop your dog is going to be done through daily management. And a small part of what you do is going to be done through the actual hands-on training. The main thing is that when you are spending that, I don't know, for my system, it's about 5 to 8 minute training sessions with food. And if you feed your dog, let's say 2 or 3 times a day, you're maybe working about 20 minutes or 30 minutes of formal training a day, max. Then from there, my clients spend the majority of their time training through play after the 1 week of food-based training to prep their dog to be able to respond to built-in commands that work with dogs: focus, impulse control, the ability to be guided, and the bonding process to bond them with their owners healthily, because dogs bond with their owners no matter what. I had a guy recently who was so worried about his as a key to bonding with him, and he got this dog at like 5.5 months, shipped from overseas. The dog cost a bunch of money, and the dog was snapping at people already. And I said, "Sir, why are you worried about your dog bonding? That's going to make your dog a little bit less confident and a little bit more protective of you, and that insecurity and that fear. You got a forward-moving dog when they get afraid." And this guy kept talking about bonding. So your dog's going to bond with you no matter what. It's a matter of developing and taking that to the max in the healthiest way possible, and the way that provides the most utility for your dog to have fun, live a safe life, live its best life. So I have a lot of others who worry about snuggling or bonding and stuff like that, and I say, just I don't almost like knock it off, but don't worry about it. That's going to happen. It's how you roll that process out that can actually have your dog bond with the world. My kids, as long as I don't do anything like too heinous or stupid, my daughters are going to love me, and I know that. And that's a great thing about family. Thank God, right? Because some of my siblings. Nah. Anyway, that's the great thing about family, where they're gonna love me no matter what. So since they're going to, and believe me, we have our snuggle time and this and that, but I really do my best to bring my daughters up with sports and academics and a base in spirituality and a general appreciation of other human beings, and servant-based attitude, an appreciative attitude, a humble attitude. Those different things I try to instill, in my daughters. I'm not worried about them bonding with me or loving me. My daughters will love me because I love them, and I'm developing them to be loving creatures. What I really care more about is your dog bonding with the world correctly. So every once in a while I'll go on to YouTube and just check out some other trainers are doing. I don't do it too frequently, quite frankly, because I don't have the time. I used to love to do that, just to learn, like, well, that's chintzy, or I would never do that, or like, how do you scale off of that, or do you always got to get that dog chicken? Like, you got to walk around with chicken, or every once in a while. That's just a cool way to do it. But I kind of know what I'm looking for. Where you guys are, if you're listening to this, unless you happen to be a trainer, like on a quest for more information and to up your game and to think more broadly, and kudos to you. I know, like I said, I constantly search out information, especially in my first years of my career. You don't necessarily know the difference of of what's next. Okay, so then what? And then how does this fit into the big picture? And so right now you're just sponging this. And my hope is that after listening to this podcast today, you're kind of putting things through almost like a filter. If you're getting information from sources besides me, I know there's some people who come to this and I'm your main source of info, that you're making an investment maybe in one of my courses or you're working, and that's great. And my hope is that I can be the end all be all, soups to nuts, A to Z for your information as you're going through this journey, as you're climbing this puppy mountain. I hope that I can be your sole Sherpa, your one and only. But if you're still like a squirrel, during harvest time, looking to, just run around the forest, like looking for random nuts, then just be careful and put it through like a filter of, okay, like how can I scale this? How do I eventually stop giving my dog chicken? Or, okay, when the food goes away, then what? How do I apply this in real life? And just kind of being a little bit more awake to that and thinking, hey, what's the basis? Like, what does this go back to? Again, in my system, I'll spell it out for you. First, we understand management. Then, once you are using your dog's normal tools, those ordinary tools that we make extraordinary together, from there, once you are maxing out the management aspect of your dog's upbringing, we then start to train with food. What we do with food in regards to obedience is the same thing that we do for play. The same thing that we do for play is the same thing we do for behavioral modification. The good news is, in my training system, we do next to no behavioral modification, because when you manage your dog appropriately and you give your dog outlets for that primal energy, and not just burning that energy, but increasing, again, impulse control, focus, the ability to be guided, and just a higher level of maturation. When you do have to intervene for your dog's bad behavior, it's normally a lot more minimal, because your dog is a prepped being, both of energy, both of responsiveness to you. And so all we're doing, if we do have to do a little bit of no-base training, is just sanding off any rough edges that still exist that the manager and coach couldn't take care of by themselves. So that's my training system. I can tell it to you in probably 40 seconds or less, and it makes sense, and it's cookie cutter. So there's no like special one-off pieces of advice for anybody, which can sometimes stink for me, because I love to not be so repetitive. But if something's worth doing once, it's worth doing a million times, and it bears repeating. My system won't like blow away when a strong wind comes. My system stands the test of time. So it's not something that I created overnight. This has taken me over 15 years to put into place like what I have. And there's a lot to be said for that. I haven't modified my system too much in the last years, and I do research. Like I mentioned, not as much as I used to, but I'm not closed myself off, and it's not like I don't want to learn. I'm constantly searching for just new knowledge, and that doesn't always mean that I bring it back and add it to my system, but I think, oh, that's a cool way to do it. It's not my chosen way or to do something, but I'm not closed off, and that's another important thing too. Hey, if a chicken given, they just treat your dog for almost every little thing. I call that more front of mind training, where it's more quid pro quo. If that works, that's awesome, and I just want dogs to be trained. You don't have to train with me. Could be doing better, because I always feel like I want to max out in every area of my life. So financially though, I'm doing all right. So I don't necessarily need for you to train with me, but I want people to connect with their dogs. With that said, hopefully you can use this podcast, again, as a filter to find the best free information that you can gather on the internet. You can take this information, if you're already working with like a local trainer, and just kind of look at maybe the information that you're getting is having some limitations, and that's okay. Not every system or not every course is meant to be the end all be all. Mine is, besides for complete off-leash reliability, but that's maybe not what you signed up for. Maybe that's not the intention of that course, or maybe you signed up for a system that is a little bit less dimensional in regards to this scalability. That's okay. What's nice is that you can take what you've done with your existing course. And let's say if you decide to work together with me, then I put what you've already done, I put it on steroids. And I just really put a microscope over things that you might have just glossed over in your puppy course locally. Or let's say that you do have a local trainer that you want to work with. You kind of have somebody in mind, or maybe you want to do like sport training or service work. If you want to bring your dogs like to read books with the kids or into the local senior home, there's no reason why you can't learn from me. Then from there, approach the information that you're getting from your next trainer with a deeper level of understanding. So I would hope that for some of my clients, this is just a stepping stone in the part of their journey for the ones who really want to go on a longer journey with their dog, or for my clients who are just looking to get relief and to make sure their dog has a good trajectory for its life. Boom, good. I can be the end all be all for you. But anyway, whether you're already working with a local trainer, whether you're sign up with me, whether you're thinking about signing up with me, just put things through this filter system as you're collecting information and most importantly, applying it. Because I'll tell you, there's a lot of bad information out there. And some of it, if you apply, you're just going to screw your dog up worse. Some of it, though, it's decent. But even bad information, bad tips, tactics, strategies implemented will still net results. So I'd rather see you do action versus the whole paralysis by analysis thing as your head spinning as you're jumping from one video to the next on the internet. So, all right, get out there, get active, go play with your champion, and I'll be waiting for you this time next week. Can't wait.
Remember, champion puppy owners, action over anxiety, discipline equals freedom. Take the next step and do what you know how to do. Drive the puppy training process. Truly commit yourself to this. Hit it hard for a short period of time so you can stop working on your dog and simply enjoy them. I'll see you next time. Peace!